Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dallas Daily Show, coming at you from the Neighborhood Loan Studio. You know what time it is. My favorite time of the week. It's the Midweek MindSHIFT episode, everybody. Today's topic is overcoming the enemy of integrity. Let's get into the conversation. All right. So you guys, if you've been listening for any length of time, you know the framework of our midweek mind shifts. We're always coming at you 7-8 minutes a day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But on Wednesdays, we do a midweek mind shift. Not a mind set, but a mind shift. And we're talking about getting a new operating system of who you want to become from a future version of you. Literally future you. So there's two potential future yous out there, my friends. There's a future you want to avoid. This is the person who you don't want to become. You know, it's all the sick, all the things, all the broken relationships. When you thought of it as a child, you're like, yeah, I definitely don't want to become that guy, that version of me, right? So there's that version of you. But then over here on the other side, the one that you want to target is the future you want to embrace, this future version of you want to become. This is the person who, when you think of them, you're like, yeah, that's the heroic version of me. That's the idealized self that I want to realize. Ooh, Taylor, I kind of like the way I just said that. The idealized, realized self that you want to become. And so in order to become that person, we have to actually build our imagination of what that person looks like, thinks like, behaves like, because the version of us that's in the present, we always go through the trippings and the trappings and the triggers of the old beliefs and old behaviors, and we try and fix our mindset. But if we build this guy out here, this version of us, this guy or this gal, whatever, if we build this version of us, then we can actually say, how does that version of me think, believe, and they don't get triggered by the old stories. They don't get triggered by the old stuff. They've overcome it. So now I bring that version of myself into my present reality, and I begin to think like future me. I begin to talk like future me in my present reality. I begin to feel what future me feels like in present reality. And ultimately, I begin to act like that person. And when I begin to act like the future me I want to become, this amazing thing happens, which is you actually get on the trajectory of becoming that version of you. That's an amazing thing. So inside of the mind shift, we're always talking about this thing. And last week in our midweek mind shift episode, we had a conversation with Coach Duke Worthington. If you got a chance to listen to that, great. But I happen to be discussing a particular thing in last week's episode, and I actually had quite a few, and I mean quite a few people reach out to me. I didn't think I said anything profound. It's something from from some of my writings from a few years ago. But I started talking about this idea of integrity. And I had a lot, actually. I had text messages, emails. I had people who I saw in person that I didn't even know listened to the podcast. They actually reached out and they said, man, what you said about integrity, that just hit. And so I thought maybe I should unpack that a little bit in today's Mind Shift episode. Because integrity, it is one of my core values. And we will talk later in today's episode about some core values for you and what are important. But integrity is one of them for me. And when I was sitting here in the studio and Coach Duke and I were talking, I just happened to say, do you know what integrity is? And here's a great way to think about it, right? While most of us define it by its synonyms, we'll say things like integrity is moral character, integrity is honesty, integrity is being truthful, integrity is living to your values. Like that's kind of the way we say it. But really what we see is we see a lot like the wind. You don't see the wind. Right? You don't look around and go, there's the wind, there's the wind, there's the wind. No, we see the effects of the wind. I put an A on effects, and that's not what it is supposed to be. It's effects. We see the effect of the wind. Some of you are driving right now, and you're like, oh, he's going off on a thing. His brain did a thing, and he's processing out loud. Yes, 100%. That's what I'm doing. When it comes to integrity is like the wind. You don't necessarily see it, but you see the effects of it. That's the idea. You see the effects of integrity. And you also see the effects of a lack of integrity, right? We can see the results when someone is not being full of integrity. We can see the results when it doesn't align to their values, when they're not being truthful, right? But when I ask people to define integrity for me, I usually get character, truth, honesty, all the things, right? I see that effects of. But I've always, since 2011, so 14 years now, this landed in me. What is integrity? Well, the best way to define integrity is not what it is, but to define its polar opposite. And when we look at the opposite of integrity, we actually get the word disintegration, as though things are falling apart. And I unpacked this last week with Duke, but the opposite of integrity is disintegration. If it doesn't have integrity, it will disintegrate. It will fall apart. And I use this idea of a bridge. When they say a bridge or a building is lacking structural integrity, what it means is it's actually in danger of crumbling. It's literally disintegrating, because it lacks structural integrity. And that's what we see when we see people who we see the results of their lack of integrity. What we see is we see things disintegrate around them. We might see a relationship disintegrate. We might see a financial situation or choice about their business disintegrate. We might see their health disintegrate because they were not in full integrity. And so one of the things that creates disintegration is another term called compartmentalization. Now, psychologists get into this and they go deep with it. They can say things like you can even have personality splitting because someone is so compartmentalized a trauma in their life. And so I'm not going to get into the psychology of it, mainly because there's no letters behind my last name. I don't have a comma and PhDs and SOTs. And I mean, BS maybe might be a letters behind my name. But that's what it is. It's an MA in BS. No. So we're not going to dive into the psychology of it, okay? I just want to talk about this idea for a couple of minutes of compartmentalization and how when we compartmentalize, we are at the risk of disintegrating. And then in the second half of the conversation, we will talk about how you identify your integrity values for your own personal life and based on who you want to become, right? Based on future version of you. So compartmentalization is simply this. You took a shortcut. You compartmentalize. Again, not talking about trauma here, okay? This is not IFS, internal family systems. This is not therapy. This is not counseling. I'm not talking about the fact that because a trauma happened to you at some point, you compartmentalized it. Now, here's the thing, is therapists will say to you, hey, once you've identified some compartmentalizations, or IFS calls it like exiles, and your manager or your firefighter, like there's all this language around all of those things. But what they will say is we want to, and the term is, we want to help you reintegrate that. Because they know if you have compartmentalized out of trauma, you will actually eventually disintegrate. And things will fall apart, and you'll see results in your life that you think, oh man, yeah, why am I getting those results? Oh, because something's compartmentalized over here. I'm actually going to say that's all incredibly important. Work with your therapist on that. What I'm talking about is the results in our life. Now, let's look at the 4 areas we always talk about on these Mind Shift episodes, right? There's the spiritual part of you, the physical part of you, the relational part of you, the professional part of you. Those are the 4 areas: spiritual, physical, relational, professional. I'm talking about if you are not seeing the results in your present reality of what you want, if you're not seeing the spiritual results that you want, maybe you've compartmentalized something. If you're not seeing the physical results you want, maybe you've compartmentalized something. If you're not seeing the relational results you want, compartmentalization might be at play. Professional results, compartmentalization might be at play. Here's another way to say it. If you're not getting the results you want, was there a place where you lied to yourself or to others, where you took the shortcut, the path of least resistance, right? Where you went for something for ease, where you went for something for the potential short-term financial gain, or because you didn't want to deal with it, that seemed too difficult, so you took the path of ease, right? There's a lot of ways that we compartmentalize to get a faster result at the expense of the long-term trajectory of who we want to become. So where in your life have you compartmentalized? I talk about this sometimes when I'm with the Joel Staley crew. We talk about the fact that, a lot of people will compartmentalize their eating, and I've been guilty of this, and I'm working to reintegrate some things. But it's like, oh, I had a really great day. We should celebrate with food. Oh, I had a really bad day. We should comfort ourselves with food. Sedation techniques are a big part of compartmentalization. If you don't want to sit in the discomfort of a moment and you sedate out of it, it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be porn, it could be overworking, right? It could be spending, it could be binge watching stuff. You're like, I just can't deal with it. I just need to sedate a little bit. You run the risk of, if you fall into that short-term dopaminic reward too often, then you're compartmentalizing the negative emotions you're feeling. You're going for short-term reward, and you're not facing the reality that you should be. So sedation is an indicator of compartmentalization, right? And it can happen in a lot of ways. We can have a lot of different ways in which we compartmentalize. How about this? You took a shortcut in your business so that you could get earnings a little bit faster, but maybe you didn't handle that client in the most integrity-based way. Did you compartmentalize? Did you do that with your spouse, with your significant other? Did you compartmentalize your kids to where you're like, I just can't even deal with this kid right now? And you, in order to shut them down, blew up, snapped, compartmentalized all of your emotions and just shot anger at them to shut them down. See, all of these things can lead to short-term compartmentalization, can lead to long-term disintegration. But if we remain anchored to a future version of us, and we can clearly define the values that keep us in line with the integrity or the full integration of who we're becoming, then the triggers, beliefs, behaviors, sedation cycles, and compartmentalization cycles get minimized, and we become more fully integrated. And we're going to talk about how to define those values toward future you in just a moment. But first, let's have a word from our sponsors. If you are a business professional and you're looking to lose 25 to 50 pounds of that stubborn belly fat over the next 90 days, I want to tell you about one of the programs from our sponsors, the Shed Fat Fast program with Joel Staley. Joel has helped over 1,500 clients lose all of that fat, get in the best shape of their life, and he does it with a proprietary fasting protocol that's guaranteed to get you results without giving up the food that you love. I know it works because I'm in the program right now, and I'm telling you, this thing is getting me results. I know it can get you results as well. He's got a free training for you. Go to shedfatfast.com. That's shedfatfast.com. Check out his free training. And when you call in, be sure and mention that you heard about it from the Dallas Daily Show. Hey, everybody, I just want to give a quick shout out to our studio sponsor here at Neighborhood Loans Studio in St. Louis, Missouri. If you're in the market for a new home, look no further. Their 5-star team is excellent. They can help you get what you need. And I can personally connect you with their team, or you can check out their website, neighborhoodloans.com. Again, that's neighborhoodloans.com, or feel free to call them 314-658-9400. Again, that's 314-658-9400. And even though the studio's located here in St. Louis, Missouri, they can service you nationwide. So trust me when I say you are in the best hands with Neighborhood Loans. So I hope this is making sense to you as we're talking about this idea of compartmentalization. Again, it's always a short-term solution or a shortcut to a short-term result that you want. But what ends up happening is you slowly kind of, if I can say it like this, cut off the blood flow to that part of who you are. In order to get a quick short-term result, you compartmentalize the full integration of your life. And in doing so, you run the risk of disintegrating, meaning parts of you fall away and you never get them back. So we have to be aware, and we'll define what our values are and how we want to put those into our world, because then there's an integrity alarm that goes off in us. And you've felt it before. It's that little Jiminy Cricket, right? It's that voice of conscience. Hey, Pinocchio, you're not doing what you want to do, right? It's that sort of thing. And we have to be willing to open ourselves up to this integrity alarm and listen to conscience when we are not aligning with our values. So let's talk about this, because there's kind of three sort of steps to aligning with values, right? First, we have to kind of determine what values we want in our world, and we have to define them, right? So we have to first discover values that are important to us and to who we want to become. We have to define what those mean for us, and then we have to determine how we're going to walk them out in our life. So discover them, define them, and then ultimately determine how we're going to demo them. Remember, if we go through, I know I'm tossing a lot at you guys today, okay? So hopefully you're tracking with me. But if we go through the 5 steps of actualizing future you, we visualize it, we emotionalize it, right? We've got a whole series of this on the pod. Notes below if you want this playlist. We visualize it, we emotionalize it, then we vocalize it until we internalize it, and then we actualize it into our reality. And if you remember in that 5th step, the actualizing it is kind of like beta testing or demoing the new version of you in your current realities. That's the same thing with this. We're going to discover the values that align with who we visualized and emotionalized, vocalized, and internalized and want to actualize ourselves, right? So first we have to discover those values that align with that future version of us. And then we define them. Okay, this is what it actually looks like based on who I'm becoming. And then, just like we're beta testing, demoing, actualizing future us, then we determine what will this look like in these environments. So there's kind of personal values. These are the things that you hold dear, right? But there's also, we have to put our personal values in order to avoid this like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, only my opinion counts, narcissistic view of the world. You can't just hold to your personal values, right? There are social values. There's just here in the United States, there are some cultural values that are different than cultural values, say, in Korea, or they're different than cultural values in Australia, or cultural values in places in Europe, cultural values in the Mid East, right? Those are cultural values that you have to become aware of. So there's personal values, and then there's kind of your cultural values. But then also we kind of have universal values. We know that to, out of anger, take someone's life is wrong. And that's pretty much across the board. That's a universal value, right? So I've broken mine down into 4, and I've kind of really worked on integrating these more and also embodying these 4 values more and more. And of course, mine has alliteration, because you guys know how I love alliteration and I love acronyms. But mine are integrity, clarity, intensity, and charity. I know those are 4 values. Integrity, meaning I want a fully integrated life. There are times in my past that I have, for short-term dopaminic reward, sacrificed long-term vision of who I wanted to become. And in doing so, I have also wounded others. That's a sign you know you're compartmentalizing. If someone else is at the expense of your short-term whatever achievement, goal, thing, dopaminic reward, if someone else is destroyed by that, you have compartmentalized. All right, so I know I have done that. I have repented for those things. I have apologized for those things. As much as I've been able to make those things right with those other people, I have done it. And it's an unfortunate side effect of us becoming who we are, that we wound other people. And I hate it. It's one of those things that just can gnaw at your soul if you'll allow it to. So I know I have compartmentalized short-term reward at the expense of other people. but integrity is a big value for me. So I'm like always trying to integrate all the parts of who I am so that I can show up better in all of my environments with consistency, right, of integrity. So number one, integrity. Number two, clarity. I want to know where I'm going. There's a whole reason I've defined my life by the future reality of who I want to become. Clarity, strategy, achievement, future focused. These are all strengths of mine. StrengthsFinder 2.0 if you've never done that test. Competition, intellection. Those are my 5 strengths in StrengthsFinder. Futurist, achiever, competition, intellection, and strategist. Those are my top 5. So there you go. If you want to know a little bit about me. Clarity, though, of my dream, of my vision, of my mission, and of my daily, weekly strategies to stay on board with that, that's all important to me. So integrity and clarity, intensity, I never want to settle in. I always want to be growing. I always want to be expanding. I'm the guy who, when I jump in, you better believe I'm going 2 feet. And it's important to me to go after everything with gusto. That's a big value of my life. And then ultimately, charity, integrity, clarity, intensity, and charity. I know that I am living my life to make an impact. You guys know the 4 I's if you've heard it in this podcast for any length of time, right? It's insight, imagination, intention, and the 4th one, impact. That is part of a winning game plan for my life. So those are values for me. I want to make sure that the room, there's this great Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that says, he defines success. And he said, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthier child, a garden patch, an improved social condition, to know that someone has breathed easier because you have lived, this is what it means to have succeeded. That's, yes, that's impact. That's charity. To know that someone's life has been better because I lived, that's incredible to me. So those are mine. Let's ask about yours. What are some of your personal values that also do not compartmentalize social or cultural for you? So the first thing you have to ask yourself in this discovery process, again, we discover it, we define it, and then we figure out a way to determine how we're going to use it or demo it in the world around us, right? So to discover is to actually ask yourself the question, where have I felt most alive, most passionate, and most like, man, I am in the zone. I am doing the thing that I love. That's a great question to ask yourself. Where was I at my best? That's part of the discovery process. When did I feel like, man, this is my idealized me? That is such an important question in discovering your values, because then you say, what was I doing in those times? What made me feel most alive? What made me feel most impactful? I was helping these people. Oh, I was lifting these others up. Oh my gosh, I was in creativity. Oh, this was happening, right? So I want you to just take a moment and to discover for yourself when you felt most alive, when you felt most aligned, what was at play, and what were some of the values that were being exercised. Maybe think of 3 or 4 times that you felt most alive. And then you define what were those values then. See, someone might define a value as serving others, where I would define it as charity. Someone might take that idea of intensity and they might say a value for them is not intensity, but it's like fully living, right? You have to define what it is for you. Don't adopt someone else's thing because they say love is the most important value, so you just say love. No, it might actually be, no, when I'm serving other people. That's a form of love. You see what I'm saying? So define it. Discover it. When was I at my best? Define it. What would you call it to put words at? And then you begin to ask yourself, how could I demonstrate this more? Now, for me, integrity being the top one, maybe for you, it's honesty. How can I be honest? But for some people, honesty, they might go, nah, when someone's too honest, they're too harsh. Okay, fine. Honesty balanced with compassion, that might be an interesting thing, right? So take a minute, discover when were you at your best, define what were the values that were at play when I was at my best, those 3 or 4 situations where you were. Then define what values were at place, and then you say, what of those core values can I replicate? 3 to 5 values is all you need to keep yourself aligned with who you want to become. Because when you start to compartmentalize and you cut off one of those values for a short-term dopaminic reward, you'll hear alert, 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 future you, integrity, alert, this is not who you're wanting to become. And then you have a choice, my friend. You have a choice to say, I'm either going to not compartmentalize here or I'm going to cut it off anyway and serve the short-term dopaminic reward. We've been talking this whole week about our positive play call has been the phrase, I have a choice to continue. And this is a great time to remind ourselves that when we are in short-term desire for dopaminic reward, to compartmentalize and not be on the trajectory of future us. We have a choice to continue in that, or we have a choice on the other side to continue toward the trajectory of who we want to be. So that's all I got for you in today's Mind Shift. The operating system of who you want to become has a list of values. Go out there, discover them, define them, find a way that you can determine how to demonstrate them in the world around you, and then become very aware of the integrity alarm when you compartmentalize against those values. Because at that point, you have a choice to continue. That's all I got for you today, my friends. I hope this was valuable for you. Let me know. Hit me up. And in the meantime, have a championship day.
Thanks for listening to my dad's podcast. For more tools, go to DallasDailyShow.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.